Secretary for Elections in the Citizens Coalition for Change, Shirie Denga, Ellen, and to my left, respectable councillor, our Secretary for Elections, Ian Magoni, whom I'm going to defer all the proceedings to, so that he can give you our statement as an alternative. After that, we can then be able to take questions. I thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Ostalos. We meet again since our last get-together at the Media Center, and we are going to try and continue interacting with yourselves throughout the course of this campaign, and more particularly the voter registration process, which goes beyond the by-elections. In the last 2 days, certain pronouncements have been made by ZEC regarding the various matters pertaining to the voters' roll and the voter registration process, which we'd like to comment on and hopefully come to a common understanding with ZEC as to what needs to be done. I don't want to dwell on too many issues, but as Ostalos has highlighted, the voters' roll is critical in everything that is going to happen. The voter registration process is critical even before we start talking about the by-elections. We are ready to engage with ZEC as an individual political party or in conjunction with other stakeholders, because these issues affect us all. Let me start off with the voters' roll. And I want to highlight two things again in relation to the voters' roll. We have been analyzing the 2018 voters' roll in relation to the 2022 voters' roll, which has been distributed by ZEC. And certain anomalies are mind-boggling. We have a case of displaced voters. I'll give you a typical example. In Chitungwiza South, Unit M, we got 2 residents, 2 women. One has been allocated to a polling station in Ward 14, and the other has been allocated to a polling station in Ward 24. Same residence, same address, and that is clear. If nothing worries us, then I don't know what it is going to be. It doesn't make sense, and we would like to suggest that one of these 2 women is going to have a rude awakening on the 26th of March, when she will have to track down quite a few polling stations before she finally lands at the correct one. Not all of us have got access to these gadgets, the smartphones, to be able to check from the comfort of your sofa. Majority do not have that. There's a second issue, which is in the last 2 days in Mabuku, during the current registration process. Members of the same household, one has been allocated a polling station in Mabuku Tafara as a constituency, and the other has been allocated to a polling station in Harare East. So again, it shows there's a pattern of displacement, which if we don't handle at this time, is going to affect the accuracy of the results. The second element of the voters' roll, which is unearthing are disappearing voters, disappearing polling stations, merged polling stations, and new polling stations that appear in the new voters' roll. And we are deeply concerned. We have got that information, which we're prepared to share with the press, but we've also made it known to ZEC. If we do not consult with ZEC, then we are all in breach of Section 51 of the Electoral Act, which requires ZEC to consult with us over the issues of polling stations. And that, more than that, any new polling station or disappearing polling station as a result of some legitimate processes should be gazetted. I am not aware of any gazette where polling stations have been merged, polling stations have been surfaced or removed. Let me move on. The disparity between 2018 and 2022 becomes clearer when you look at the classic case of Khupe Central. We have a total of 1,452 persons that transferred in to Khupe Central. Of that number, no less than 600 persons have been transferred from Mbizo, which is next door to Khupe Central. When you transfer, which is a normal thing to happen, you make a declaration of your new address. When that declaration is false, it is illegal. Now we have proof that at one particular address, 49 persons have designated them as their residential address. And it's number 1 Harare Road, Kwekwe. If there was a house to talk about, I would say maybe they crowd in there. But there's no house at all. So it's uninhabitable, that particular address. A quick survey in the area of the persons that supposedly transferred has indicated to us that they are not known at those declared addresses. We therefore insist that a detailed survey be undertaken among all those persons that are reflected as having transferred from one constituency to the next since 2018. One other aspect which is equally disturbing is the case of Glenview South and Glenora. Glenora itself has been attractive to no less than 2,000 people that transferred in from various constituencies. But the most remarkable transfers are those from Glenview South, specifically Ward 31. We have persons that transferred from a polling station in Ward 31 to polling stations in Ward 27 and Ward 28 of Glenora constituency. If we could show that the individual has changed address, it is their legal entitlement to transfer their vote. But it is the same basic addresses. These are persons that continue to reside in Ward 31 of Glenview South. And yet, come elections, they would have us that they are now living in Glenora. And what begs us all is, what is the reason behind it all, if not to affect the electoral outcome? Enough said about the voters' roll, and we can continue to engage, and the message here to all citizens is that it is as much of interest to yourselves as citizens as it is to political parties. We are really doing ourselves a lot of harm in terms of the legitimacy of the electoral outcome. And it's important that we highlight these issues before it happens. Voter registration. In November of last year, ZEC advised us, and I was present when they did so, that they would be conducting a voter registration blitz starting on the 6th of December. And then a moment later, they advised us that no, that blitz would not go ahead on the 6th of December, or starting on the 6th of December, but rather be moved to February, by which time they would have coordinated their efforts with the Registrar General's office. We didn't argue, it made sense. Then they make an announcement that the blitz will start on the 1st of February, which was really out of the blue, and our informal interaction with them had led us to believe that it would be on the 22nd of February. But again, we didn't argue, only to find that it was a unilateral decision by ZEC without consultation, so we are told, with Ministry of Home Affairs. I don't normally speak on behalf of that ministry, but in this case, I think they are right. Something is clearly wrong between the coordination, in the coordination between those two offices, which is going to cost us our democratic dividends. The net result is that this voter registration came off to a very slow start. There is no motivation, particularly among the youngsters who do not have IDs. Even in 2017 and the earlier part of 2018, when we introduced the BVR system, there was a degree of coordination. Friction, but coordination nevertheless. And we asked for no less. So these issues, the implications of this disjuncture between the two offices impact on the delimitation process. And it's important that you as the press have a good understanding of why we say it impacts on delimitation. We got a population census due, I think, at the end of April. We have the delimitation process scheduled in the ZEC timeline for August. Anyone that misses the registration blitz, whenever it is running, is in danger of not being part of the delimitation process when it happens. We have sought confirmation from ZEC that anyone who is unregistered, whether they've got an ID now or they do not have an ID now, should be a candidate for the delimitation process whenever it happens. That assurance has not been given. And so we have a bond to, is that the right word? Yeah. with ZEC, But I think these are not matters that are insurmountable. Our estimate is that this country is good for 9 million registered voters. We're currently sitting on just under 6 million. So therefore, the estimate of persons without IDs, which Ministry of Home Affairs verbally to me said is 2 million, and I agree with that, plus others that did not make it in the voter registration, the BVR system in 2017-2018. So we have got a national target of new registrations that we must achieve of 3 million. And it's a national target that everybody should work towards. So we really look to the press to continue in your efforts, variously urging particularly young unregistered voters to take up their citizen rights and responsibilities, go forward and register. When you look at the demographics of our population, it is clear that the future is in these young people. And if we do not make provision for them to make the first step on the ladder, then future generations will blame us. Okay, I got it. So I've talked about delimitation. Next, let me deal with the electoral environment as we see it at present. In other environments, there is no need, once a proclamation has been announced, for the kind of restrictions that we see happening all around us. We have our activists prevented from engaging in car rallies, engaging in discourse, and in within the confines of the COVID regulations, do what they wish to do. There is the case of our councillor candidate in Mwonzora, who was brutally assaulted by 6 ZANU-PF thugs. They are still out there free, roaming free. Nothing has happened to them. And the intention, we need to make it very clear, is to instill fear. But let me make it very, very clear that this time around, no amount of this kind of intimidation and violence is going to deter an idea which is now right. So the perpetrators of violence should really just rethink the act, because this is old solutions to new problems and they won't work. We have also had our National Organizing Secretary arrested for conducting a car rally in an during an electoral period. And I see our Vice President Babiti here, arrested for what reason? He doesn't know, but just arrested. Now, it's that kind of irritation which is totally unnecessary, but I must emphasize that we will not be deterred. Other key reforms which are part of our 7, the 7 that Ostalos referred to, include the public media. By now, we should be having equal treatment at the ZBC, the national print media, but none of that is happening. And ZEC has a legal responsibility to oversee the free treatment among political players in this case. So the challenge we face, we throw it back at ZEC, do your job. So, just to round up, I really thank you for affording us the opportunity to make these observations. And we'll be happy to interact some more. And we'll be happy to engage with you through our communications people of any facts that you require. We thank the citizens from the bottom of our hearts that they're taking a personal and a keen interest in national affairs to a larger extent than they've done before. Be they analysts, because we don't know it all, be they practitioners, because we're not all perfect ourselves. It's all gelling together. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We will take questions as per the tradition. You introduce yourself for the purpose of our own records and clarity, and then you can go ahead. So maybe I'll take the first three. Yes, and then Ru. Yeah, you can go.
Thank you. My name is Dyson. We made a number of observations with regards to voters. Have you formally engaged with the Electoral Commission? And if so, what was the response?
Okay.
My name is Rachel Mawere. Councillor Makon, outside the issue of IDs, during your previous engagements with the media, you had said that you have millions and millions of unregistered voters. How come the Blitz has very low numbers nationwide?
Okay. Yes, Pula.
Okay, my name is Blessed Bikan. ZEC has issued a statement dismissing all the allegations that you have made, and you so insist on those allegations. On what basis do you do so in relation to the press statement released by ZEC?
Okay, thank you. You can take a few.
Thank you very much. Let me start off with the question of what engagement there has been, which then partly addresses your issue regarding, we are talking about the same issues. We are talking at each other with ZEC. You probably were not quite here yet, but in my opening remarks I said we would really love to engage with ZEC. But they went ahead and made certain pronouncements which we felt it necessary to respond. That is the response. We are able to prove any of the points that I've raised. So if they've got points to prove what they've said, and we engage, it can only be good for the country. So yes, what I'm saying, ZEC already knows. So we don't want to talk behind their backs, and we don't want them to talk behind our backs either. And then the second question you asked relates to the low turnout. As I said at the beginning, we are very concerned. But bear in mind that at household level, you have probably as many young people with IDs as without IDs. And we must not underplay the impact of that dejectedness among those without IDs that it has on people who otherwise would have taken the trouble to go and register. But let me take you back to 2017, 2018, maybe 2017 when BVR was first introduced. I walked the streets myself. And for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was like we're knocking at doors without people inside there. It's a normal thing at the beginning of such a process for the reaction to be slow. But a tipping point registered 3 weeks into the first BVR, and we saw the numbers of people on the streets. So let us not be discouraged by the low initial turnout. I can assure you that if we maintain the campaign that we hear both on social media, at family level, and at community level, you will get the numbers. This figure of 9 million that I said should be the national target is not a creation of CCC. It is an independently generated figure, which I can only believe to be realistic. So they are there. So our challenge is to find them. Let me give you another example. Approximately 10 or 11% of our national population are people living with disability. Yet how many of those are registered? We have all got a collective guilt as Zimbabweans of hiding them in the back rooms and not assisting them to assert their democratic rights like even any other citizen. Secondly, we have the terrible situation of Matabeleland and parts of Midlands. A lot of people there without with IDs, victims of the Gukurahundi. We all know that, and yet we pretend that it didn't happen and that they don't need IDs. So I went all over, but I really wanted to paint the picture that we haven't even started scratching the surface. It's as much the responsibility of political parties as it is of citizens in general. Thank you.
Yes, Yvonne.
Thank you. My name is Yvonne from Zimbabwe Daily. I hear you, Councillor Makoni, but I think the people of Zimbabwe or those from CCC would want to understand what you, as CCC, have actually done. I think my brother asked the question, have you formally engaged with ZEC? Have you formally engaged with the registry office to highlight the cries that you are making? Yes, it's very difficult for one to get an ID, but what have you as a political entity done to ensure that those who don't have IDs, who want to get IDs, get representation from yourselves as interested parties, especially given that many young people who want to register to vote have been given even dates off. I'll give an example. Someone went to get an ID, they were given a date on later in April 25, if I'm not mistaken, of April, for them to come back and get an ID. But the by-election is happening on the 26th, so that person is missing the by-election.
Okay.
And yet they've gotten an ID.
Yeah. Thank you, Yvonne. Let me make it very clear here. Look, in terms of, I'll respond to the first question, then I want to add more on the question of the challenges. We have met, remember Councillor Ian talked about our meeting with the Commission. We had the meeting with the Commission. We highlighted these issues. That's why we said ZEC can't make decisions without interested parties being involved, right? That's the first fundamental problem in the electoral process, right? The question of stakeholder engagement on the side of the Commission. Number two, in terms of our activity to respond directly to the question, that's why we're highlighting the problem of identity documents. It's an area of manipulation. It's a very problematic issue. And we must make it very clear. And the question is, what are we doing with the question of, because there was supposed to be blitz of issuing of identity documents that goes parallel with the voter registration program. So it aids to the frustration. And don't think that's an accident. And we want to make it very clear. It's deliberate. It's ZANU's menu of manipulation. That we must frustrate voters. We must frustrate. Remember, these are young people. These are unemployed people who will not want to spend a lot of time. So bureaucratic red tape in the Commission, in the Registrar General's office is a problem. And we must make it very clear. What are we doing to resolve that? The first issue that we are doing as an interested party and a political movement is public interest litigation. That's why we are taking this issue to the court. Because the court must be able to declare, even on the issue of the voters' roll, but there must be a declarator when we are going to the by-election, that declares which voters roll is going to be used after the voter roll has been cleaned. So that's our demand, and that issue has to be resolved in the court. Secondly, we exercise our constitutionally guaranteed right to make those demands, not just in the courtroom, but in the streets, but that's our constitutional right. So we're going to be using different strategies and engagement to make sure that we've got a free, fair, and credible election. The question and fight for reforms is a collective fight, but we do our moral responsibility as a political party. That's why we support different people, and let me thank artists and different players, social forces that have come out to urge people to register to vote, because it's an important issue. And I want to answer the question why people don't turn out to vote. It's also, again, because ZEC, state media, has got that responsibility to spread the message. How many times will you see the advert on ZBC? Nothing. But you see them covering clowns in town, complaining about rumors and scout that happens on the internet, complaining to a minister. It shows the lack of focus, both at the central government level, but also in terms of state media, because it has to cover. It has to cover and it has to communicate to people. Where will you see information deliberately spread across different sections of society? In the radio, for example, because there is wide coverage by the radio, which we don't have access to as an alternative, which must be spreading information, urging people, giving them information. What do you need to go and register as a vote? So we can only do so much, and we are doing all our efforts because we are an interested party. But we thank everyone who has taken the moral responsibility to make sure that we push our numbers, because it's a generational question. Is a mandate for everyone. I hope I've clarified that. Bule, you seem to be having something pending.
Yes, sure. Recently, there were statements that you're a new party, you don't have structure. But I hear you referring to vice president, to secretary for information and stuff like that. I need to understand because I'm now confused. Because you appear to say this is a new party, doesn't have structure, but you said I saw vice president tonight. You introduced Councillor Makone as the secretary for elections and stuff like that. That's one thing. The second question that I want to understand from you is that when you talk about street action, when is this likely to roll out, and in what format? And just as you were explaining, but these things have been happening. As Tendo asked, these things have been happening, and you have always been threatening to do something, but you then go to elections without having done something, and you still complain about the same thing. You complained about these very things in 2018. I remember one of your candidates in Blawayo, I don't remember her name, her husband was in another constituency. She was in another constituency, yet they stayed in the same house. So these are not new people. Complained about them. So is this CC a platform for complaint?
Okay. I'll take Bule's question for avoidance of doubt. Look, firstly, we're not a participant in the 2018 elections. New movement. And I hope you won't be contradicting yourself to say we should be new, and you want us, for the purpose of your submissions, to go back. We're a new political movement formed this year. You know, you're a participant in our announcement. Look, and I want to respond quickly. We made our announcement that we are here to participate in the electoral process as a new movement, and this is who we are. Any questions? So what we have done, and members of the media must be able to understand this, we've announced our political entry into the political market of this country to contest in this by-election and the next election. Anything to do with our character, to do with our form, to do with our values, to do with our strategic objective is going to be announced in due course. This is a new movement that has been announced. I mean, even for any organization, if you launch an organization, you don't just come up to, we're going to issue all these things. The media is going to be given our new Zimbabwe blueprints, which articulate succinctly with precision and clarity our ideological persuasion, our pathway, our central strategic objective, our revolutionary theory. We're going to communicate that, but we do it in due course. Why? We're fighting one of the most old dictatorship in Southern Africa. And what we do, you know it. Most of you and most of regime agents were surprised when you introduce yellow. Even the commission itself asked us fundamental questions. No, why can't you bring the MDC alliance? We're prepared. I mean, how does ZEC get interested in the name that we use in the plebiscite? So it shows that there's chicanery. It shows that they want us to move within ZANU's menu of manipulation. So we're not going to do that. To answer the question of reforms and complaints, look, we have articulated, cleared the menu of manipulations. We are not going to accept elections without democracy. And let me make it very clear to the commission. Look, ZEC has got a constitutional mandate to hold free, fair, and credible elections. But beyond the constitutional responsibilities, it has the moral responsibility to guarantee stability in this country. So if Zimbabwe Electoral Commission chooses chicanery and democratic practice at the expense of stability, they've got a hand to the future of stability in our country. And that thing must be known. So to talk about past, we're a new movement. Expect us. We're going to make it very clear. We can't make threats that we are not going to live with. We are very clear. We made it very clear that, of course, we can't reveal our strategy for reasons that I've mentioned, because we're dealing with a dictatorship. But we are very clear as an alternative to the pathway that we are taking. Once we make public interest litigation and no results are yielded, we go to the next phase. Because our revolution, the mass transformation revolution, has got a defined method of struggle. And that method can't just be given to our detractors, because they'll be having access. Obviously, we know they are watching this press conference from Chongwe building. So they must know that our strategy and tactic remain our preserve. And we're going to make it public. And we expect Zimbabwean people, we expect members of the fourth estate, we expect every stakeholder to be patient with. We're a new kid on the block. We are very clear in terms of our pathway. You are going to know it. And to make it very clear, the activity that is happening on Sunday is a star rally. We are painting Zimbabwe grounds yellow to launch our campaign for elections. We are not launching the yellow kit. We are going to do that. We are going to have those processes. We are going to know who is who, who's doing what, where, how. And I hope that sufficiently answers the question.
Yeah. Look, don't worry very much about me saying VP. You know very well that there's such a thing called a transition to the new. And invariably, you even yourself made some mistakes calling me this and the other. So I hope that point is made very, very, very clear. We are new.
Yes.
My name is Perfect. Are you, for purposes of clarity, are you going into the election even without the democratic reforms and electoral reforms that you're talking about? Because I think
the by-election or 2023?
Or the by-election in 2023. Okay. I thought I heard you say we are not going into that.
Okay,
election.
yes, Bula.
Are you declaring here now that there's an attempt to rig an election through the voters' vote?
That's why, thank you for that question. It's very clear that there is a possibility. That's why we've proven scientifically that if these anomalies are not resolved, then there is a deliberate attempt to rig these elections. That's why we highlight them, because there is a room for a conversation, there is a room to clean the voters' roll, there is a room to make the level ground very clean. You come to our rally, ZBC is welcome. We're going to give them free space, we're going to give them free access. We've always given them free access to interviews with our political movement. So the questions of reforms, the questions of anomalies, the question of the voters' roll must be resolved. That's why we are raising these issues now, but there is a room for them to be resolved. On the question of our participation in the election, look, we've made a declaration that we are going to be participating in the by-election for purposes of obvious reasons that we want to resolve past problems, right? We are going to be participating, but we've made it very clear on our reform agenda that we are testing again in this election the capacity of the commission. And let me make it very clear. We are testing in this by-election as a side meal the capacity of the commission to conduct free, fair, and credible elections. So that is going to be proven in this election, and it's going to impact on our participating in the next election in 2023. That's number one. It's going to impact on the future of democracy in this country. It's going to impact on the future stability of our own country. So those decisions are going to be made and communicated in the right time, given how ZEC plays the ball. We expect the ZEC to be the referee. We don't expect ZEC to remove its referee combat and joins the other team. That is our expectation, and we hope that ZEC is going to do his constitutional mandate.
Just a follow-up. You say that you are going into the by-election to fix past problems, yet you also don't want to be associated with those problems when it comes to this new baby. How are you choosing?
Those are no, my brother. Look, you are a journalist.
Yes.
Those are problems that this country has been facing. There is no debate that there was an election in 2002, there was an election in 2005, there was an election in 2008, in 2013, and in 2018. And those elections have led, all of them have been subject to court processes. And even the court in this country, which is another area, the role of the judiciary. Because part of our reforms we talk about, the 7 reform that we talk about, is the question of a transition. How does the judiciary guarantees democratic transition after ZEC declares the winner? So the question of elections in this country being debated is a non-historical fact. It's not our issue. It's a national problem that we are highlighting. That elections in Zimbabwe, previous elections have been challenged in court. Declarations, some of them have not been made, despite that participants are no longer with us. So it's a problem. So elections have left Zimbabweans divided and united. It's a problem that we highlight and that we are conscious of as a movement. So we are going to be participating in this election conscious of those historic problems, because we intend to have those resolved so that we have a democratic transition. Yes, I think we have last 2, then we close it.
What are you going to boycott the elections if at all the reforms are not made to make the level round, to make the are you going to boycott the elections if the reforms are not made done according to the specifications that you think will make it conducive?
Thank you. Yeah, second question.
Similarly, I want to ask about voters' confidence going into the election. There are reports about Dr. Khupe, a probable comeback into the party CCC. Are you by any way deliberating on coming back into the structure?
No, that's yours.
Thank you very much. I think that journalists in this country are very intelligent, so they want us to build certain narratives. Look, the question of us boycotting elections or not, if I respond to that question, I'm giving you a movement position. We have made it very clear that we are having this by-election as a test of ZEC's capacity. Once we do that, remember, this process is scientific. This is not wishy-washy or a process that we do from imagination. It's a process that is done out of research. Once we prove beyond any scientific doubt, we present the evidence to the party's leadership at the right time. We will make a decision to say, these are the challenges, this is the practical step that we are taking, and we'll call again members of the state in a particular forum and make the announcement. But we have made it very clear that our intention is that we participate in the election, hear what the problems are, in the by-election in particular, to know ZEC's capacity. Once that is made, a determination is going to be made by the leadership and communicated, ascertained to members of the media and the general citizen. The question of Dr. Khupe, look, I've made it very clear. We're a new movement. The capacity or the authority to join is being a citizens movement, right? And one has to respond in their own. Because I'm not Dr. Khupe. I can't respond to Dr. Khupe as a political journey. The last time I saw her where she was doing what she was doing, and I follow it the same way you follow it. I have no conversation. We have no conversation. To state it very clear, we have no official conversation we have as a movement with Dr. Khupe, but she can respond. I mean, she's got those rights. You have got her contacts as members of the media. You can find out what is Khupe's political trajectory and her decisions. And by the way, she's got that right. We're a democratic alternative, every citizen. That's why we have said it's a movement. The qualification, let it be known for avoidance of doubt, the qualification to join the Citizens Coalition for Change is being a citizen of Zimbabwe. Whether you're in the military, whether you're a police officer, whether you're in the Central Intelligence Organization, whether you're a vendor, whether you're a student, whether you're a member of ZANU-PF, the right to join this is a citizens movement, and everyone is welcome. We welcome everyone. I receive phone calls every time from Bule, and I've told him that, you know, you have got the right to join this movement. Most of people are asking where are the cards who are going to issue cards in due course. All the processes it's your home, it's the people's home, it's for everyone, because the intention is to bring change and transformation, to change the lives of ordinary people in this country, irregardless of their religious, tribal, ethnic, racial, political persuasions. It's a home for everyone. Without much ado, I want to thank Deputy Secretary for Elections, Elian, our Secretary for Elections, Councillor Ian, and all members of the Fourth Estate. Let's paint the world yellow. Fellow citizens, on Sunday we invite you to an inaugural rally in Zimbabwe grounds. Let's come in large numbers and communicate to the political market the future of this country. It's exciting. Let's register to vote. It's a key fundamental message. It's a key duty. The ask and task to ordinary people. Be a registered voter. If you come to the stadium, please bring a voter registration slip. It's now the new identity in town. I thank you, members of the Fourth Estate.